Hello, back again. Okay, so today we're talking about my biggest issue, and I know I've talked about this in the past, but I kind of want to give it a different spin on it today, because my biggest issue was resentment. And when I was young, I was very insecure, feeling unworthy, unlovable, very deeply wounded. And I realized I would see everything with good, bad, right, wrong. So we're all kind of brought up to that. You know, that's bad, that's wrong, you're a good girl, you're a bad girl. And so, of course, we had this real sense of black and white, you're either a good girl or a bad girl, and there was kind of nothing in between, which is a bit unfair, really, because, you know, if you did one thing wrong, you're a bad girl, and if you did one thing right, you're a good girl. So it didn't matter about all of it, it just mattered about sort of some of it. And of course, that's the lens that we judge everyone through, because it's like, oh, well, you're a nice girl, you know, because you do good things, and you don't cause a fuss, and you don't step out of line, and you don't get all emotional, and you know, so therefore you're a good girl. So it's like we are very early on told or shown, or it's revealed to us what we need to be. And so, of course, I was very wounded, and therefore I would perceive everything as good and bad. So if someone was mean to me or someone wasn't very nice to me, they would be bad. And I would judge them accordingly. And I realized, you know, someone said the other day, and I thought it really resonated, what's the opposite of love? And of course you think it's hate, but actually they suggested it wasn't hate, it was judgment. And that really resonated in the deepest spaces of my being. Because I realized if I judged them in the moment, so they're bad, and then, and the interesting thing, sometimes us women are a bit like, we've got brains like elephants, and we remember everything, and I certainly do. I'm one of those people that will remember every single thing someone said to me a long time ago. And the reason probably I've done that is because the way our brains are made, and men's brains are made very differently. They're actually brains, and you can research this, and don't ask me where, because I know I've seen it and it's been researched that men's brains will actively more forget things than women's will. Now, I'm sure because they're constructed differently, their anatomy is differently. Women will remember everything, and this was why we're kind of doing better at certain things in life. So I would remember everything. So if someone said something like mean or hurt me, I would remember that. And so when I was younger and first met my husband, there were certain things he might have done that I remembered very well because they hurt me probably. So some of the things he didn't do, and I have talked about this in other videos. So, and interesting, I would probably in that moment have judged him as wrong. And then, you know, it's as you go on through life, and I realized the word resent is like you resent that moment of judgment. So in the now moment, as I look back and I think about the thing he did or didn't do, probably more, and I would resent that moment of judgment in the now. And of course, if you do that over the years and months, and this is what I did, and I had a resentment towards my husband for many, many years about something. And every time we had an argument, I would bring it up, which is what you do, isn't it? I could laugh about it because I've got over it. And I would say, yeah, well, you weren't there for me when this happened. Oh. And I would be holding that because it was a pain that I resent that memory of in moments where I was in pain, or we were arguing, or we were struggling, and I'd, you know, play dirty, because that's what that is, talking about things that happened blooming years ago. And he didn't even remember, he couldn't even remember it. It was, for him, it was something and nothing. And I realised resentment played a big part in my life because it caused me a lot of pain and suffering and uncomfortability, and it was self-inflicted. Because I would resend that memory, you know, in the present moments, and it would build up every time. It would build up because every time I resent that memory, it would create another brick on my wall. So that's like another layer of pain inside my body. So that pain didn't get less painful. It probably got more because it was more embedded in my system. And they did a lot of research. I'm sure I've shared this because I love research. And they took men and women who were in prison and they went and interviewed them. And they realized with women, if you went in there and talked to them, they'd get angry. But if you stayed there, it wouldn't be as, they would kind of stay with you. With men, they went and interviewed men, they'd get really angry. So the person that was interviewing would step outside and then go back in, because men would calm down after that initial sort of blow up. Whereas you wouldn't do that with a woman, because if you walked out, they'd start thinking about all the other times they've been hurt and all the other times they were abused. And so when you went back in, they'd be more angry. So can you see, once we open that floodgate, and I think this is where men and women are different, not always, I'm generalizing here, so be aware of that. But that's the research they did. So when they interviewed women, they stayed there. They didn't come out, leave them, because as they left them, they'd get more angry. And I think I can really relate to that, because I didn't get less angry about that thing that happened 20 years ago, or however many years ago. I got more angry, because every time I resent that memory, and I don't know, I just think, I've never really heard anyone say that, but I just kind of think, well, that's what it was. I resent a memory that created more pain even after the event had been and gone. So this was my biggest issue, because I remember a lot of things, and I have, the conversations I had. So if you had done something to me or said something to me, I would hold on to that, and of course that caused a huge amount of pain in my body and anger and frustration. And this is why I think I was a rageaholic for years, because I took all that and repressed it, and when you're struggling, it all came out sideways. And I realized judgment was, and I don't think people talk about this that much, because I think judgment was the key. It was the judgment that I thought they were bad. And of course, then I demonize someone. They're all bad, because it's all very black and white. They're all bad. I'd forget all the good, wonderful things they did. I just focused on that one thing they did, and they were all bad. And this is how I did life. I looked back and saw, if I took a couple of things that were negative, it was all bad. And I demonized the person. I demonized this situation, because I'm good. Well, I must think I'm good if they're bad and they're wrong and I'm right, so I must be good. And this is the trouble with that black and white thinking. And it wasn't until I read Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, and that was 20 years ago. Actually, it probably wasn't that long. But anyway, I obviously I started getting better over the years. But there was a moment in there where he talked about, don't judge things right and wrong, good and bad. They just are. Now, this was compounded by another theory, which was act therapy, which is kind of similar, as in, don't say, is that wrong, or is that good, or is that right or wrong or good or bad? Say, is that working for you? And as I started to change the way I thought, and I took the judgment out of it, because I realized it was all connected. Because I was judging them bad, I built up resentment, and then I got really angry, and then I'd withdraw, shut down, or just ghost them, probably what you'd call it nowadays. We didn't have that word back in the day, but I'd be like, just shut you off. That's it, you're gone. And that's how I would punish you. It was very passive, aggressive. I probably wouldn't say anything. I probably just wouldn't contact you or never speak to you again. And you might not even noticed. I don't know. But anyway, I was just thinking about that. My biggest issue definitely was resentment, anger. And of course, I caused myself a lot of suffering in that time, because the memory that I remembered, when I thought about it, I would judge them all over again. So it was about judging them. And so when I took out the black and white, and I started to think more about, is this working for you or isn't? Because I realized judgment is so cruel. You do one thing wrong, or you make one mistake, or you say something out of turn, or you forget one thing, and somehow I've judged you bad and wrong, and I've demonized you. But people are, I always call them people are good, bad and ugly. We do, the trouble with this is, if you focus on the negative, you distract yourself from all the other stuff, which might be good. So I'm just going to judge you based on that thing that you did wrong in my eyes. no wonder I was struggling. No wonder, because I felt like I had to be good. And so you have to be good. And if you're not good, well, I wasn't good all the time. I was repressing and it was coming out sideways. And and because I had seen people be judgmental, I don't think I thought I didn't want to be judgmental, but I was judgmental. I just repressed it. So I wasn't even aware that I was being judgmental. And this is what I, had to wake up to. And I'm, realizing, because when you see someone else be judgmental and you make a decision early on, I'm not going to be like that. You invariably are that, but you've just repressed it, and now you kind of put it in the dungeon and you think you're not, but you are. And I was delusional because I thought, I'm not judgmental. Well, of course I was. I mean, personally, I judged myself more than I judged anybody else. And I wasn't, I was a harsh taskmaster, and I did a lot of harm to myself, more so than anybody else, because the way I dealt with everybody else was probably I'd just withdraw and ghost them or not speak to them. I didn't actually harm them by calling them names and beating them up. I saved that for me. And so I just really wanted to share that with you, because I thought, resentment, why do they call it resentment? Why is it resenting someone? And I thought, well, yes, because in a way you resent that judgment about what they did then every day until now, and you're still resenting that judgment of you had over them. And I was just like, wow, is that what we do? That's why that black and white thinking, it's like, and that's what we're coming out of. We're coming out of that, very black and white, all good, all bad, all right, all wrong. Because it just doesn't work. And I never, people go, I did the wrong thing. I go, well, probably didn't work for you or anybody else. And I refuse to call it right or wrong, good or bad. I say, because that is too extreme. It's too black and white. And I've learned to be very, easy on myself and really encourage clients to do the same. It's like, okay, I can see what you did there didn't work for you. And that really takes that element of judgment out of it. Because as soon as you call something right and wrong and good and bad, you're in an area of judgment. So I just wanted to share my thoughts about that and really highlight, if you can get away from saying good and bad, right and wrong, especially with your kids, and encourage them to think more broadly, is what you're doing working for you? Is it helping you get what you want? Is it part of who you actually want to be right now? And it's a lot more softer, gentler approach. And there's more compassion in that, I think, than, I think you're doing the wrong thing there. It's too limited. I think you're doing the wrong thing there. And who am I to say this is wrong for this person? Who the hell am I to say that to anybody? So for me, I always say, is that working for you? And then is this working for me? Because this is all about empowering people, isn't it? This is all about empowering people to make better choices. I can't tell them what's right and wrong for their life. I'm not God in their lives. And sometimes we want to do that, especially with our kids. Oh, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that with my kids or with my clients. They have to make up their own minds about what they choose and who they want to be and what's important to them. I'm not here to tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing, or how they should and shouldn't be feeling, and what is right and wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about, the bad stuff. I'm not talking about, I want to get drunk and go in my car. No, that's not going to work for you. People that take drugs, for example, having worked with lots of people struggling with drug addiction, I'm not here to tell you to stop taking drugs. I'm not going to do that. On some level, they know they probably need to stop taking drugs. Me telling them that isn't going to help. Me helping them explore why they take the drugs, what's behind, what's underneath, how are the drugs helping you? What is it, stopping you from feeling? Because that's what drugs are. They're a coping mechanism. They're curious questions, But I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is right or wrong, because for them, they're doing what they need to do. And I think I want to be kind and compassionate. That doesn't mean I don't hold people to account, because I do. And I will tell them straight, you're out of line, mate. You can't be doing that. If they're going home yelling at their partners or, carrying on like pork chops, nah, that's not going to work. And don't get me wrong, I don't say, there are some black and white areas. You go away and abuse people. But I'm talking about generally. And by using more of a softer focus and a broader focus, you can allow somebody to be who they are without sitting. Because I think the worst thing of all, that we're also terrified of being judged. Because if you're judging me, you're going to deem me right or wrong. It's like you're sitting in front of a judge. Prison, not prison, sentenced, And so I think we're all terrified of that on some level, but we all do it. And I refuse to do it. And I'd judge myself. I'd judge what other people might be wearing. I'd be like, oh, that doesn't look very good on you, honey. But I'm like, who the hell am I? Am I to tell people what they should and shouldn't wear? And if they want to go out looking in those clothes, looking the way they do, then that's up to them. And I refuse. As I've got older, I realise I refuse to judge because, do not judge, yes, lest ye be judged. And I don't want to be judged, so I'm not going to judge anyone. People are doing their best and living life on their terms. And that's all any of us are doing, really. So, and I cause myself a lot less suffering in the process. And for me, this is all about how can I take care of me? Because I care how I feel. I don't want to feel better than anybody else. I don't want to feel less than anybody else. I want to feel good. So that was my little thought of the day. I thought I'd share that with you, whoever's listening out there in YouTube land. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you again next week about something different. Bye for now.